news here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. The local government of Tagum has implemented stricter border control measures in the city. This as it imposed a more stringent general community quarantine in the area for the entire month of June. Authorities are inspecting each vehicle to ensure that only essential travelers are allowed entry. Those aged 15 and below, as well as those above 65 years old, will not be allowed to go out, except for emergencies or for vaccination. Only a few food establishments are open, while beaches and resorts have also been closed down. All face-to-face non-emergency and essential government activities are likewise suspended. As of yesterday, 13 new cases were recorded in Tagum City, which brings the total active COVID-19 cases in the city to 641. Health authorities say Metro Manila might be declared a safe zone anytime soon. But the DOH warns the public should keep up its guard as infections continue to rise in the Visayas and Mindanao. Faith Del Mundo with the story.
The Health Department reports a steady increase in COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations in some provinces. With this, the DOH reminds residents in the NCR Plus to keep their guards up despite the loosening of some restrictions in the bubble. They also believe that placing NCR Plus under the extended GCQ with restrictions was successful in lowering COVID-19 cases.
Sa tingin po namin talagang naging epektibo because nakita po natin talaga yung patuloy na pagbaba ng kaso dito po sa NCR Plus bubble.
In the Laging Handa public briefing, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Berheres said the daily average in the bubble right now is at 1,000 cases. That's a huge decrease from the 5,000 daily average of COVID-19 cases reported from March and April. With that, NCR might be considered as a safe zone soon. But Berheres reminded the public to remain cautious of their movement.
NCR malapit na doon sa tinatawag nating safe zone, but if the other regions are having this kind of increase in the number of cases, we have to treat this matter with caution kasi very fragile ang sitwasyon natin at maaring bumalik tayo ulit sa dati.
Berheres said some regions, particularly Visayas and Mindanao, are experiencing an increase in new cases and hospitalization. The country's vaccine rollout, Berheres reported that 98% of our supply of COVID-19 vaccines were already distributed and the remaining 2% are only considered buffer stock. Some LGUs temporarily halted their vaccine rollout. But with the new batch of vaccine doses in the country, Berheres assured the public that vaccination can be resumed soon.
The overall challenge should always be the supplies, no? So, bagamat kahit gaano natin gustong palawakin at pabilisin ang ating pagbabakuna, kung ang supplies po ay hindi pa stable, talagang may challenge po tayo lahat.
Around 60% of the new batches of the COVID-19 jobs will be allocated to regions with high number of cases. But she reminds them that the vaccines are not the only solution in controlling the spread of COVID-19. Berheres emphasizes the need to follow health safety protocols like wearing of face masks and face shields. For News 5, Faith Del Mundo, we are One News.
Opposition coalition Isambayan says it's not necessarily the end of the road for those named as possible nominees who opted out of the selection process. On Radyo 5's Failon, Isambayan spokesperson Howard Calleja says the official list of nominees will be released on July 1. Those named over the weekend were merely invited to participate in the nomination process and were not yet the final set of nominees. He also added that possible candidates could run through their own parties but still under the umbrella of the Isambayan coalition.
Ito po naman nominado para lang sumama sa proseso. Hindi naman sila nominado na sila po yung kandidato ng isang bayan. At at the end of the day, kung sila naman ay susuporta sa kandidato, kahit hindi sila sumama sa proseso ng pagpili, yun naman po ang goal ng isang bayan.
The Bureau of Corrections builds yet another wall in the middle of a road in Barangay Poblacion in Muntinlupa. Residents are dismayed as this new wall blocks their main access to some parts of the city. Here's the report.
Almost 1,000 families appeared to be like prisoners caged in their own community in Barangay Poblacion, Muntinlupa, as the new Bilibid prison starts building another wall along the road leading to the facility's Type B area. It was around 4 p.m. on Sunday when Bucor personnel started building the new concrete wall in the middle of the road, leaving many residents shocked.
Masakit po sa kalooban namin. Kasi hindi naman po kami hayop eh. Hindi naman kami preso. Dito na po kasi kami tumanda.
Because construction of the new wall was sudden, some vehicles and residents were trapped in the area inside and outside Type B.
Tulad ng mga sasakyan, kalabas, hindi na po makapasok. Tapos kami, hindi na rin daw kami makakadaan, babakuran na rin daw po.
Some workers in the area, like tricycle drivers, delivery riders, and vendors using carts, had to halt their jobs as the new wall blocks their path. Aside from denying residents access to some areas in their community, most of them are worried that the new wall could hinder them from accessing service should there be any form of emergency.
We are also residents of this place for almost 60 years in the service. My husband retired here for almost 42 years in the service. Tapos gaganyanin kami, para kaming preso na ikukulong dito sa lugar na to. In case of emergency, saan kami pupunta? Bakit ganun? It's unfair.
The Bucor said they have plans of demolishing houses of informal settlers in the area as it is still part of the NBP compound. But the Bureau noted negotiations with residents at Type B are still ongoing.
Merong binaba sa aming yung meeting lang, nag-meeting kami doon sa BRS. Ngayon, ang sabi nila, meron daw demolish. Pero hindi pa kami binababaan ng notice.
The Bucor also explained that the new wall is being built for security purposes as they aim to eradicate supposed drug and criminal operations in the area.
Kapag ikaw ay squatter, hindi ka talaga dapat in the first place, wala sila doon. May mga squatters doon na matagal lang pinapalis, sila pa yung mayabang.
The Bureau said that they are merely protecting their vital facilities within the compound, like their engineering and correction training school. For now, authorities want residents to take an alternate route called Magdaong that could lead them to other places in the city. But this is situated in higher ground, which may not be ideal to some residents, especially senior citizens. Type B residents are now calling for help from the Muntinlupa LGU.
Almost 200 families in Tondo, Manila are now temporarily staying in evacuation centers. This comes after a huge fire engulfed a cargo vessel near the Delpan Bridge on Saturday. MV Titan 8 was supposedly docked at the wharf for refueling when a load explosion occurred. 7 people were reportedly injured while 1 person remains missing after the incident. Several houses caught fire when drums filled with gasoline drifted from the cargo vessel.
Talagang nagmadali na po kami na sirain yung pinaglalagyan ng wheelchair ng tatay ko. Tapos pinuhat ng nanay ko. Talagang tinaktakbuhan na kaming lahat papunta sa kapatid ko sa loob ng Coast Guard.
Wala nang natira, wala man lang nakuha kahit ano. Linis lahat-lahat ng gamit. Hindi kasi namin nakalain na abutin talaga kasi napakalayo eh. Napakalayo ng barko na yun. Dahil lang dun sa nag-iisang drum na yun na pumasok dun sa loob ng bahay ng ilalim ng bahay namin, sumabog yun. Yun ang pinagmula ng apoy, tsaka yun natupok lahat ng bahay sa gitna.
The steel industry burns billions of dollars worth of coal yearly, but it also produces parts for most green technologies like wind turbines and solar panels. Bloomberg's Eddie Spence explains in this video why the shift to green steel is crucial.
The green revolution is being built on a very dirty industry. Steel is critical in almost every single decarbonisation technology there is, be it wind turbines, solar panels, or electricity pylons. The problem is production burns billions of tons of coal every year. In fact, the steel industry each year emits more CO2 than all the buses, cars, and motorbikes on the planet. According to BNEF forecasts, to build enough wind turbines to reach net zero by 2050 would require 1.5 billion tons of steel. That's enough to build over 42,000 Burj Khalifas. So what does that mean for the steel industry? It means it's going to have to decarbonise, and fast. It's a huge task because the industry is currently dominated by coal-fired blast furnaces, which emit huge amounts of CO2. Steelmakers are currently exploring 2 main ways of replacing these. The first is to substitute the coal with biomass and then trap the emissions it produces underground. ArcelorMittal, Europe's biggest steelmaker, is one of the companies looking at doing this. It's an appealing option because it avoids having to do costly retrofits of all the existing blast furnaces. The problem is, this solution isn't necessarily scalable. There simply isn't that much biomass around, and a lot of other industries want it. For example, the aerospace, biofuel. Another option is replacing coal with green hydrogen, which, when used to make steel, will emit only water, making it an inferior greener option. It's also infinitely scalable. So long as you have enough electricity, you can make green hydrogen. One of the companies looking at doing this is SSAB. They're currently in the process of building plants that will run on hydrogen. The problem is, using green hydrogen will require incredibly costly retrofits of all the steel plants. There also isn't that much of it today, simply because the industry almost doesn't exist yet to produce it. All ways of decarbonising the steel industry involve massive costs and huge technical barriers. But there is some hope. Some of the world's biggest steel companies have now committed to reaching net zero emissions by 2050, including ArcelorMittal in Europe, Nippon Steel in Japan, and most importantly, the Chinese state-owned giant Baowu Steel. That's incredibly important because China produces over 50% of the world's steel. Unless China decarbonises, all the efforts of Western steelmakers will be for almost nothing. One of the core issues with green steel is that it is fundamentally more expensive to make than polluting steel. That means that governments have to provide incentives to steelmakers to produce it. Finally, they're starting to do so. The EU Green Deal, set to be announced in July, is likely to contain measures to promote production of green steel. For example, tariffs on foreign polluting imports, as well as high carbon prices to make green steel production more viable. Without measures like these, the decarbonisation of the steel industry simply won't happen, and there will be huge costs for the planet.
Filipina tennis champ Alex Eala now has 2 junior Grand Slams to her name. This comes after Eala and her Russian partner, Oksana Selekmeteva, claimed the French Open girls doubles title on Saturday. The duo took down Russia's Maria Bondarenko and Hungary's Amarisa Chiara-Tov to win their maiden championship as a tandem in Paris. Eala and Selekmeteva breezed through the first set in just 20 minutes, while their opponents put up a harder fight in the second round. The top seeds emerged victorious. Eala's first Grand Slam plum came in January of last year when she won the girls' doubles title in the Australian Open with Indonesia's Priska Nugroho. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.